Today, an Autotank gets auto-corrected. The GWR Autotank, the cute, quaint, very purposeful class of locomotive that has been represented as a single type of the class for many years, until DJ models fixed that. As with all locomotives, over time they received modifications, and the Dapol/Airfix/Hornby Autotank only represents the post-1944 model and missing off the initial 12 years of the 1932 design. So what features are there that can date this model to such an extent? Well, for starters, there's the steps on the bunker and the whistle guard, which put it after 1936. And the apertures on the cab steps and the top feed put it post-1944. And with this particular model, the 14XX number series puts it after 1946. The 1400 number series was only adopted after the 4800 series was required by the experimental oil-fired 2800 class. Seeing as I modelled pre-war, all these adjustments need to be backdated. We'll also be giving the whole model a facelift too. The DJ model's 4800 class retails at £99, which is a lot, so we'll budget ourselves half of that. So, what are we using for this? The 4800/1400 class upgrading kit from Mainly Trains, the GWR buffers from Alan Gibson, dummy couplings from Hornby, etched number plates from King's Cross Models, white metal crew from Dark Castings, GWR tool fret from Shire Scenes, buckets from Scenecraft, GWR loco lamps from Model U, bit of spare brass to make bunker hooks, a DCC decoder from Lay's Digital, bit of coal, bit of plasticard, bit of black paper, bit of paint, transfers from the HMRS sheet, and a bit of weathering to finish it off, which in total comes to £46.60, just within our budget. So, to start with, take the model apart. That's done by removing the screw from inside the chimney and the one underneath the bunker, remembering to undo the wire clips before pulling the chassis away, and then put the chassis to one side. The chimney can also be put to one side, as can the coal load, the handrails, and the cab roof. Firstly, we're going to be removing the parts we don't need anymore. So taking a scalpel, carefully cut off the buffers, the coupling hooks, the steam lance, the chimney base, the top feed unit, the safety valve bonnet, the cab steps, and the whistle guard on the cab roof piece. With most of these, they'll need a little filing and emery paper just to smooth it down afterwards, being careful of other details like rivets in the areas. Whilst using the file, also file down the smoke box door ready for the installation of the new one. So we're going to simply start at the front and work our way back. So the front buffer beam is started on first, with the new buffers going on, and using the supplied diagram and also photos of the prototype for reference, the vacuum pipe and auto train fittings can be fitted. The one item that won't be permanently fitted here is the coupling, as this has moving parts and doesn't want to be affected by the paint. However, a trial fit is recommended to ensure it fits before the paint is applied. Next, the smoke box door is fitted using some U-hoo, ensuring that it is installed correctly with hinges being parallel to the running plate. The dart too can be installed again with a small dab of U-hoo, and making sure that the rear handle of the dart is pointing directly down. The second arm can then be installed pointing in whichever direction takes your fancy. Moving up the loco a bit, the new chimney can be installed. You need to make sure that not too much of the sprue protrudes below the interior of the boiler, as this could affect how the body sits on the chassis. Also, as the old chimney is being replaced, this means that the screw that held the body to the chassis at the front can no longer be used. So more care will be required when picking the model up after this modification. Moving further back the model, the new safety valve can also be fitted. The hole which it fits in may also need to be widened just a little bit to install. Now we're at the cab. We're going to need to use the chassis to work out some sizes. As we're using the original chassis, the entire back head casting won't fit due to the motor. So, using the chassis in situ, work out how much of the casting needs to be cut away for a decent fit. Once that's been figured out, cut and U-hoo in position. Next, using a little bit of plastic guard, create a false floor for the cab, so that the crew and the handbrake have something to sit on. Also, whilst using the plastic guard, create a plateau for the new coal load to sit on. Now, install the handbrake and trial fit the crew. The crew will need to be removed before the loco is painted, as they've already been painted. Then, using some filler, fill in the apertures in the cab steps. Once this is dried, just file it away and you've got a nice flush finish and the apertures are removed. Now we turn to the back of the bunker. Using a bit of scrap brass from an edge, create the 4 tool hooks. These can be created by bending it round a cocktail stick, or in my case, a very small screwdriver. And as with the front buffer beam, the details are installed with the buffer heads and couplings being removed for painting. Before painting, we'll just quickly turn our attention to the chassis. Firstly, we're installing DCC. The Lay's DCC chip is fairly small, but we need to cut most of the wires off and actually make the wires quite short so that it can fit without overflowing wires everywhere. If you want more information on this, you can see my hardwiring DCC video for a more in-depth guide to the simple task of installing DCC into older locomotives. This DCC decoder is then soldered into place with heat shrink put around the joints. Also, a simple upgrade here is to cover the motor with a bit of black paper, which makes it a little less obvious there's a very overscale motor in the cab. The last thing to do with the chassis now is to replace the ATC battery boxes. These can simply be cut away and the new ones U-hooed in place. Now we come to painting the model. Before painting, quickly reinstate the handrails along the boiler, as this will help in the long run. As you can tell here, I did forget at this point to reinstall the handrails, but never mind. I'll fly through this in my usual fashion: red on the buffer beams, green on the body, and black on the smoke box, running plate, top of the tanks, and the roof. I used a paintbrush on the chassis, so to save any chance of getting paint where I didn't want it, specifically the electrics and gearing and motor and whatnot. Whilst using the paintbrush, I also painted the appropriate colours in the cab whilst the roof was still off, and also the buffer beam hoses and fittings. The transfers will now be added. I'm opting for the GWR roundel, as this model is as built in 1934, which was in the middle of the GWR roundel period. The buffer beams also got their numbers, 4866, and that's the extent of the transfers for this model. A quick blast of matte varnish holds it all in place. Now that it's all painted, we can add the final details, starting firstly with the coupling hooks and buffers to the buffer beams. The loco headlamps also received a little dab of maroon before being installed, as painted is always better than moulded plastic colouring. One of these is then installed in the top position above the smokebox door, as this is a Class B branch passenger train. The cabside plates can now be installed. The King's Cross Models ones require a bit of cutting and a bit of filling to get the correct size and shape. But once that is done, a bit of super glue and that's in place. The crew can then be permanently fitted and the roof glued on permanently afterwards too. On the tool hooks on the back, some of the tools from the fret painted black can be hooked in place, and a bucket from the Scenecraft pack can also be hooked on and glued in place, just to stop it getting a little bit AWOL. Once all the glue has dried, a quick pass of weathering just to make it a little less toy-like and a little bit more used, and we're done. A more accurate backdated, detailed model of a 4800 class of locomotive for less than half the price of a DJ model's equivalent. Don't get me wrong, I love the DJ models one, but the homemade is always more satisfying to run, and being cheaper is a great bonus too. So, with all that done, let's look to the air count, which today stands at dong. So, let's turn that into pounds, and seeing as the day was literally all about 4866, that'll be donated to the 4866 Restoration Fund at Didcot, who are looking for £150,000 to help restore this locomotive to steam. And that's us done for today. Thank you very much for watching, and just simply tap the subscribe button and you'll be treated to a world of greatness, and also this channel.